Welcome to another episode of Talking Feds One-on-One. Today I'm thrilled to be joined by one of the most prominent persons in the fight to expose Trumpism for the lawless authoritarian enterprise that it is. Rick Wilson, veteran political strategist, co-founder of the Lincoln Project, one of the first in the country to recognize the gathering storm on the right, and for nearly 10 years, an indefatigable warrior for democracy and opponent of Trump and Trumpism. A quick note before we begin. Due to a technical glitch, we lost the first few minutes of this conversation, which was recorded before a live audience in San Diego as part of our Talking San Diego franchise, where we speak one-on-one with national figures. We pick up just as Rick is describing the moment when he realized that Trump's toxic persona wasn't a liability, but in fact an asset to a certain faction of the Republican base. What follows is a riveting account of how the GOP opened the door to a reactionary, often racist, and conspiratorial worldview, and how that worldview fused with Trump to fundamentally reshape American politics. It's a bracing and important conversation, informed by Rick's years in the trenches and his clear-eyed view of what it will take to keep the Republic afloat in the face of what's coming. Here's Rick Wilson.
I had a recognition that Trump had tapped into something very deep in our culture and very dangerous in our culture. And I knew at that moment
we're 2015?
This is the summer of 15.
With the strong array of Republican candidates, right?
Yeah,
all the way across
17 great Republicans on that stage,
yeah.
And one Cheeto Jesus. And I recognized that there was a moment coming where the character of Trump, which I understood a little bit, I'll tell you why in a second, the character of Trump being low and horrific would merge with that cultural movement in the Republican Party that wanted to destroy everything. They wanted white guys in red pickup trucks. That was it. They didn't want black people. They didn't want Jews. They didn't want Catholics for a large measure in a weird way. They were fearful of modernity at a level that you can't even begin to understand. They didn't want gay people around them. And it wasn't just that they were all haters. As I said a minute ago to somebody, all in this era, not all Republicans are white supremacists, but all the white supremacists are Republicans. And that part of the party that we used to take out of the closet every 2 years, hose them off, go take them to the voting booth and put them back, became the dominant thread in the party, became the dominant force. My friend Stuart Stevens wrote a beautiful book called It Was All a Lie. And the irony of, to look back on why I changed, I was going after him at first because I wanted Marco to be president. And then I got a very prominent client who said, I need you to go out and do focus groups. We've got to solve this problem. We've got to figure Trump out. And I went to focus group in Orlando, Florida. And it was the very first one of this series. We did 32 groups in 16 cities. It was exhausting, but it was enlightening. And a woman starts to say, well, he can never be bribed. He's the richest man in the world. He's brilliant. He's the best negotiator. He's a genius. He's this, he's that. He owns all of New York City. So I type a little note to the moderator. I'm behind the mirror. I'm like, okay, why don't you walk her through this? And he says, well, he only owns 4 buildings in New York, and he only owns half of one of those 4. He's been bankrupt 6 times. And she starts like, no, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. That's a lie. You're planning this to lie to America. That paranoia that was built by Fox and Breitbart and all these weird online hellholes that you don't even know about, that they'd become very habituated to using, changed their brains. It changed their souls. And that moment told me the first part of the night that when I had my epiphany, there were people whose minds could never be changed in this day and age. And that is terrifying. It should terrify everybody in this room. There's a chunk of Americans, it's about 30, 40 million of them, who will never, ever, ever change their mind.
Some people would put it higher. So that's how the MAGA core that will never change is, what percent would you say of the electorate?
I would say 28%, 26 to 28%. Now, there is one thing that will change. A lot of them are baby boomers. It's going to change. Demographically, it will change. But there's a more frightening demo at the younger age part of this that we could talk about later. But the second part of it was this guys, sometimes in a focus group, you're having a conversation with voters. You want to talk to them and get a flow going. Sometimes you know one guy's going to try to take it over, and one guy did take it over. And he told his story, and I realized the America I helped build by electing all these Republicans had caused this problem. Guy says, I moved down here from Michigan a year and a half ago. I voted for Barack Obama twice. I'm like, okay, interesting. He goes, I grew up in this town in Michigan, and my dad worked in a wire harness factory for Ford Motor Company, subsidiary of Ford Motor Company. My dad put me and my 3 brothers and sisters through college. We had a little house on the lake, and we had a boat. My mom didn't have to work. My grandfather worked in this wire harness factory, and he had a house on a lake, a different lake, and he had a boat, and my grandmother didn't have to work. He goes, me? I got fired because my company got bought out by a hedge fund. I had to train my replacement in India. I work in a fucking call center now. Sorry, pardon my language, I'm salty. He goes, I work in a call center now, I make $8 an hour, and my son's on his 3rd tour in Iraq. I'm gonna burn it all down. I'm gonna burn it all down. This country effed me. This country hates people like me. This country loves black people, and they hate me. And if Trump means I can say the N-word, and I can be who I am, and I can be mad at the people who I should be mad at, then I'm gonna vote for Trump. And I was like, oh, we're so fucked. And because you saw he was representative of a much bigger group. He was a group of people who America betrayed, okay? And I will tell you, it was Republicans and Democrats alike. Republicans said to them, we're gonna cut billionaires' tax rates, and we're gonna deindustrialize, and you guys are gonna do great. It's all gonna trickle down. And Democrats said, we're gonna retrain all of you to be solar panel installers, and your life is gonna be marvelous. And it was BS on both sides. And these people hate politics, and they wanted a destroyer. They wanted Shiva. They wanted somebody to come in and burn it all down. And sure enough, he's there. And I couldn't be a part of that. And the irony of the Republican Party was when I started, 90% of my other Republican friends were right by my side.
And you've mentioned you've worked with Rubio and other people there. Yeah. It must be that you don't have to betray confidences, but that the people that you knew similarly saw the danger here, and now, of course, they tend to be, sycophantic.
Now, of course, they're the Vichy Republicans. They have decided they're going to work with the bad guys. Yeah. In private, they'll still come to you and go, "Oh my God, I hate this. It's so terrible, and yet my consulting firm needs me." I cannot tell you the number of discussions I had with people here in 2017 and 18 when Trump had been elected, of people who would privately call me in tears and screaming their anger about everything. And I would always say, what are you going to do about it? Well, my kids are in college. Well, we just bought a new beach house. Well, my wife wants to go to Soda. And the Washington is a very lucrative place. Very lucrative. And they wanted the money, and they wanted the access to power, and they wanted to go and go to the White House Christmas parties, and they wanted the trappings of it. And Trump is a con man who understands human weakness at an instinctive level that none of us in this room share. He can always find the way to make people their worst iteration of themselves. And so, you have Mitch McConnell right after January 6th. And Mitch McConnell, Harry Reid one of my greatest conversations in my political life was in 2020. I got on the phone with Harry Reid. And Stuart Stevens and I were on the phone with Harry Reid. And Harry's like, there are three masters of the U.S. Senate in our lifetimes. Lyndon Baines Johnson, me, and Mitch McConnell. And Mitch McConnell is the only one who could master the Senate in the minority. I wish to God Chuck Schumer had Mitch McConnell's brain every day, because if Mitch McConnell was in Chuck Schumer's shoes, Washington would be shut down. Nothing would be moving. Donald Trump would be begging for mercy right now. But here we are.
Okay, let's stick with your guy from Michigan, because the postmortems of the election really focus a lot on, Democrats thinking it might be a women's issue election, and it turned out to be the election, some would say, of disenfranchised young men, including Hispanic men, African American men. I wanted to play a commercial at this point, one of your masterpieces, but let me serve up this question first. Mm-hmm. Looking ahead, both to 26 and 28, is the task are there enough people still available for persuasion? Do you need to change minds or educate new ones?
So, everyone's in the room is familiar with the phrase FAFO. We are in the finding out phase right now. It's blank around and find out. Donald Trump is actually doing the best public education program he could possibly do to the American voters right now. They wanted a trade war. They're going to get it good and hard. They wanted this imaginary trade deficit to go away. Well, it's going to go away, but so is about a third of the American economy. They're hitting real voters. It's one thing to be like on their Facebook page going, I hate Hillary Clinton and I hate Barack Obama and Joe Biden is senile. It's another thing to go into Target and go, I just paid what? For my kids' school clothes? What's this?
Eggs, right.
So
just 1 dozen. Yeah.
So the economy is going to drive a very fundamental equation here. As it did at the end of the day, there were a lot of behavioral Republicans. So you take that 28% of Republicans who are the cuckoos, right? Put them aside. There were a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump this time because they are conditioned to want low taxes. They associate Trump with economic growth and prosperity. They have a kind of generic and genetic disposition that is fed at a milder level than it's not the crazies, but it's your average Fox uncle. Everybody knows the average Fox uncle. Those people think that if Kamala Harris was elected, that she would immediately seize the means of production and institute full communism. It's an absurdity, but they believe that kind of thing at a really pretty deep level. The association, though, of Trump with tariffs, of increased prices, of economic chaos, of job losses, of the government falling apart, and by the way, as much as Republicans love to be like, I pulled myself up by my bootstraps, as our buddy Steve Bannon, who is not my buddy, said recently, he goes, the truth of the matter is a lot of Trump's voters are on Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and disability and TANF and SNAP. So it's what I call just the tip socialism. They want a little socialism, not what they thought it was going to be. And look, there was a racial element to this campaign. Mm-hmm. And there was an African American male behavior where they did not want to elect a black woman. We've started to tease it out of the polling numbers and out of the voter behavior numbers. And Trump did appeal by going to where they were listening. It's one of our things about changing minds. Go where people are listening and watching. Don't try to always create something de novo. He went on the wrestling podcasts. He went to the WWE matches. He went to the fighting matches. All those things. A lot of young men are very much engaged in those things, and they thought, he may be weird and old and have wear a 4-foot tie, but at least he's coming to our party.
Right.
And they didn't feel like Harris had a cultural similarity with them. And Trump's campaign, and one thing to really always keep in mind, there were about, let's say if there were 100 Republican consultants in the top tier, 15 of us are in the Lincoln Project. The rest of them still work for Trump. They're not stupid people. They know how to do things. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to run advertising that shapes people's behaviors. And the biggest thing they did last year, well, first I'll tell you a secret. If you want to know what works, look where Republicans are spending money. Look what they're spending their money on if you want to know what works. Because if you're not doing the stuff that works in the Republican Party, you're out in the political consulting class. So the trans ads, which were horrific and stupid and hateful.
Everyone know what we're talking about? Yeah. Kamala Harris. Okay, go ahead.
She's for they, them, I'm for you. They spent $360 million on those ads, not just in Trump's campaign, but in Republican campaigns down the ballot, including in places where they had no trans issue to speak of. They did it because it worked. Who did it work on? African-American men, older African-American women, Hispanic men, Hispanic women, young Hispanic men. It was like a fireball. It was like a nuclear bomb. They hated it. We made an ad as a response to it because the Democrats just wouldn't do it. They're like, nope, we're not touching it. Nope, we're not doing it. Nope. We made an ad in response to it, and the Democrats were like, well, it could blow back on us. We could have people get mad at us for running an ad that... I was like, okay.
This seems like a really good time to cue up one of yours. This one's a little different. Would Knives Out be a...
Sure, Knives Out is a current...
So, Sebastian, let's cue up. We're going to have 3 or 4, and they vary. This one's a little bit...
Let me contextualize this for you.
Yeah.
So we have 3 big buckets of ads we do at the Lincoln Project. One are what we call narrative setters. We want to help Democrats tell stories to America that Americans will listen to and understand and change their hearts and minds.
Which they're not great as it turns out. Right?
No, Americans are, it's a tough target. It really is. We do very specific issue-based ads that go after a key demographic in either a presidential, a congressional, or a Senate race. And the ad you'll see tonight, Daisy is one of those. We also do one category of ads. It's the smallest category, but it's called Audience of One. Those are ads that I put on directly where Trump is. And I started at first by thinking, oh, I'm just going to buy Fox News wherever Trump is. Then I realized I could buy digital advertising that beamed directly to Trump's personal cell phone. So this ad you're going to see is hitting the White House campus. And when Trump travels, it travels along with him to go to Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster, wherever he is. So Knives Out is one of the things we do with Audience of One ads is to make Trump paranoid. Because I am the leading anthropologist and psychologist of Donald Trump in the world, and believe me, that is not something you want in your head. So Knives Out is the current Audience of One ad, and it's been running for 10 days now, 12 days now. And at the same time, we're seeing an uptick in infighting in the administration. Boom. Have a look.
It's funny, though. This time it only took 2 months before your own team started stabbing you in the back and tearing each other apart. The knives are out. Elon attacking Peter Navarro and calling him dumber than a box of rocks. Navarro blasting back. Howard Lutnick under fire from your own West Wing. These idiots, please. Anonymous sources, leaking. Drip, 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 Donald. Everyone around you is fighting Donald. Not for you, for themselves, for their power. They're all leaking to the media. Telling the truth about your mess, your mistakes, your embarrassing performance at everything. And while they're fighting, you're sinking. Looked at your polls lately? Don't. They're as bad as your stock market. You thought they'd be loyal to you, Donald. Are you really that naive? They're ripping you off, getting power and fame from you while leaking against you. It's sad, Donald. So sad.
So,
Who's the audience there, and what's the goal of the commercial?
the audience there is Donald Trump personally, to drive up the paranoia of Trump that he has a fundamental belief. He's said this, and I found the first reference to this that I found was in a 1977 article in the New York Post, where Donald Trump's like, people are ripping me off. He thinks people are stealing from him all the time, and his currency used to be money, but now it's power and fame. So when we put their faces on there, when we show their faces in these audience of one ads, he will start to go, I wonder who Tulsi's talking to. What's Pete Hegseth doing? And these things we know are generally going to fit into a behavioral pattern with Trump that he can't shake. He watches these things, and again, because digital metrics are so good, one of my ads that we ran earlier in the year, just before the inauguration, the device handset identified with Donald John Trump watched it 41 times in 2 days because he was angry. He's watching this one a lot, and his people are seeing it. And when his people see it, they get defensive and freaked out. I will say this, the audience of one ad is a superpower that, let me just admit this, I almost killed Mike Pence. I almost caused Mike Pence to be murdered. It's a true story. When we were coming up before...
The English pointers?
Listen. When we were coming up on January 6th, we put up an ad in D.C., an audience of one ad, to dishearten Trump. We told him, Pence won't do what you want him to do. He won't invalidate the election. I actually caused January 6th by that. I feel very terrible about that. But we were trying to make Trump's legal team and Trump stop what they were going to do. And to his credit, Pence stopped. And in one of the books that was written about the election, it's like he was sitting there in the basement of the Capitol thinking about the ad that the Lincoln Project had run against him. Yeah. With great power comes great irresponsibility.
There you go. Okay, well, and that is a little bit different. Let's go to what I think is your sort of second. Well, here's how I'd like to set it up. For me, the defining characteristic of the Trump and the Trump era that drives me to distraction, but people say, so it happens. He's a flagrant, promiscuous liar. He gets up and lies all day. So I wanted to ask you, but let's move into Daisy with this. What particular challenges this sort of post-truth brand of politics pose for, how do you engage with someone who just, and voters who just don't believe in facts or not the same set of facts? How do you even start that conversation? And, well, let's talk a little, and then let's cue up Daisy, because I think that's trying to depart from rational discourse.
Yeah, Daisy's an emotional hit.
Yeah.
So in the post-truth era, you have to deal with emotions. You have to talk to people where they are. You have to talk about what they're actually experiencing in their heads. You have to give them a competing set of goals or fears or understandings, because Trump is very good at reading his people. He knows to piss them off. He knows to give them an enemy. He knows to read from the catalog of imaginary demons, chapter 4, under D, DEI. He'll go through. He has a portfolio of things that stoke the amygdala and the fear reflex of a lot of Republican voters in this country. You can't argue with them sometimes about Trump's intentions, behaviors, truthfulness, because they've built a very complex set of rationalizations in their heads. Oh, he's lying to own the libs. He's lying because the media lies too. He's lying because he's sick of America being lied to by the elites.
Everybody lies.
Everybody, right. They all do it. They're all just as bad.
Right.
By the way, a lot of Democrats last year did that bullshit too. Sorry. Where they were like, oh, well, Harris is just as bad, and she's not right with her own mind. Oh, how'd that work out for you? Especially these idiots in Michigan who are like, oh, she's wrong on Palestine for my Arab American friend. Oh, really? So how's it working out now with Mike Huckabee as the ambassador to Israel? But that requirement that you get to people emotionally is something that, one thing you won't see in most of our ads. A lot of political ads have like headlines in them and a lot of words and text and pictures of data that you're trying to suck into your brain. Very rarely will you see things like that in our ads. We're trying to tell stories, show people little movies about the world. Now, last year, during the election, we really fought hard to get the trans ads, countervailing force to the trans ads out there. It didn't work. We couldn't do it. We could do a lot of stuff about abortion. Now, what was Trump's big lie here? His lie was, Project 2025 isn't my plan, and I'm not going to do a national abortion ban, and I'm not going to ban mifepristone, and I'm not going to do. All of it was always going to happen. I mean, when Trump's mouth is moving, when his lie hole is flapping, you know what's going to happen. But Daisy was an emotional ad to hit Republican women and Republican men of a certain small percentage. Now look, here's the irony for Lincoln Project. In 2020, we got about 4.39% of Republican voters to change from the GOP to Joe Biden, which was considered a political miracle, and it helped win the election. God bless. Mm-hmm. Our number this year was about 5.6. We got more Republican voters, but Kamala Harris lost too many Democrats. I couldn't, with the budget I had, I couldn't do all the work. I couldn't make all of it.
Well, let me ask you that, and then, and Sebastian, we should queue up. But is it if you had all the money in the world, would you have won the election, or would Harris have won it?
Yes. Yeah. If we'd had the resources to go back into the Midwest in particular, in the upper tier Midwest states, and hit back on that trans ad, and recapture, and what I would have done. And by the way, Democrats, God love them. They're so naive. I just love them to death. They do things like, well, he did an ad about trans people. We must therefore do an ad about our position on trans people. The answer is not that. You do not punch a Republican back on the same issue. So Donald Trump did that ad to capture male voters. So what do you do instead? You show that the policy was Donald Trump's policy, making him look weak and stupid. Because it was. That policy started during the Trump administration. You push it back on him and make him look weak and stupid. You remove his fake masculinity. We did an ad one time that had like J.D. Vance in like a drag wig. And these people freaked out, but one of J.D. Vance's oldest friends, who I know, said to me, he goes, that's the kind of shit that just like wigs them out. Yeah. They can't handle it. They have this conception of themselves, and you don't always hit them back with policy. Democrats love policy. God, they love it. They love it so much. It's like, if you just read my 745-page climate plan, you would understand why you must vote for me. And Republicans go, more money for you. Anyway, Daisy was a hit.
Let's cue up Daisy, can we?
Yeah, and it's meant to hit Republican men.
And this is, again, the Webby just today announced the best commercial.
And this ad had like, not just paid, but like 25 million views across platforms. Yeah. It was a big deal. Well, not yet, guys.
Well,
it had nothing to do with Shabbat Shalom. Believe me. All right, I broke it. I will now perform it as a tableau vivant.
Are we there? Do we have it? Okay.
Heart rate at 130. Blood pressure dropping. We're at 80/50. Finger clamp. We're at 80/50.
It didn't need to end this way, Dad. You were so excited to be a grandfather. When you walked me down the aisle, those were happy tears. College, high school, sports. I could always count on you. You were my protector, my hero. You always made me feel safe. loved, like I was the most important person in the world. But it turned out he was more important.
The fact that I was able to terminate Roe v. Wade after 50 years of trying.
Each one of those abortion bans includes strict legal rules that are designed to be impossible to comply with. How does a mother who is dying in a hospital bed get to a courthouse to prove to a judge that she's dying?
You will no longer be thinking about abortion.
You knew what he'd do. You knew his politics would end my freedom, my rights. My life. You chose hate over me.
Dark, but two obvious possible, and maybe you mean both.
Yeah.
Audiences here would be women of childbearing age, but also parents, fathers. Who's your target here?
That ad was very much about what we call a girl dad demo. They are a existing and continuing Republican demographic. They are not the hard MAGAs. They are the economic, I want my tax cuts low and all that.
Right.
And they have built in their minds and had a pretty good division until the trade war stuff started. The idea that the economic benefits of Trump would outweigh all the other damage that he will do. A lot of them are very cognizant of the damage. They understand who he is and what he'll do. And so this was to talk to those girl dads. It also had to do with Republican women, a lot of whom, I know how sexist this sounds, do not want to tell their husband they're not voting with him. It's a cultural thing inside that party that is, especially in the South, that is real. So, that ad is a gut punch, but it's also the kind of ad, it doesn't have a single stat in it. It doesn't have any graphics in it. It's a story. It's a little movie. And telling that kind of a story is where people are. People consume stories. You watch Instagram to watch little stories. People watch TikTok to watch little stories. You listen to podcasts to hear longer stories. They're not in the same frame we were in 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. So we're trying to build political messaging that is emotional and powerful and persuasive. And again, I don't have to win every one of those deep red people over. I just have to nudge enough people. I need 50% plus one.
Yeah.
And I need to win 20 congressional seats next year and take back the House of Representatives. So that at that moment, the MAGA party is over. At that moment, the MAGA party is dead in its tracks. It is nothing but roadkill at that moment. Because Trump is not going to be on the ballot again. He's going to try, but he's not going to be on the ballot again. There's going to be a civil war in the Republican Party that's coming. You can see it building up right now. That civil war is going to give the Democrats a single moment of time, a single opportunity in 2028 to recapture the White House. And because of a lot of chess pieces moving in the Senate, it will give you a chance to recapture the Senate in a realistic way. But I think I've had to think now in a 10-year time frame for elections, not just one after the other, because Trumpism is a powerful force, but it is brittle. Trump is a powerful leader, but he's brittle. You can't beat somebody with nobody, though. And the Democrats need to put up some people in the coming years that, and this may sound like heresy, but we have learned, and doesn't speak well of America. They're not going to vote for the liberal white lady, and they're not going to vote for the black woman. They're not going to do it. That made their lives in the Trump world infinitely easier. and if the country is not there yet. A very prominent Democrat asked me right after the election, like, who has to run? I'm like, I don't know the name, but I know the thing. It needs to be a white veteran male who's got a great presence on television, who can go out and talk to real people, who doesn't come across as an elitist, who doesn't come across as an egghead or a nerd or a policy geek. It's got to be somebody that people can relate to, and it's not that I want that because I want another white guy. It's that I want that because I want to win. And I'm about winning. I worked for Lee frickin' Atwater in my first political job. You know what? We had 2 rules every day. You woke up every day and you had to follow the 2 rules, and everybody knew them and everybody learned them. Just win, baby. It was rule 1. Stay on message was rule 2. If you were confused about rule 1, refer to rule 2. If you were confused about rule 2, refer to rule 1. It's recursive, but it's real. And if you give the Republicans another term in the White House from 2028 to 2032, you will not recognize this country. Trump is doing his damnedest to destroy it now. This is not a second term. This is the revenge tour. He is doing his damnedest to destroy this country right now. And I'm proud to be one of the people that's willing to get up every day and put my middle finger out and stand in front of the train and say, no, absolutely not. You know, that I saw a phrase a couple months ago, and it was on a small poster on a phone pole in Brooklyn. And it said, if you wonder what you would have done in Germany when Hitler came to power, you're doing it right now. And I'm going to get up every day, Harry, and I'm going to kick the shit out of this guy. And I'm going to go at his people. I'm going to go at his people. And believe me, I am 61 years old. I have been doing this my entire adult life. I have an absolutely gorgeous fiance who would love for me to take more time. I have a brand new granddaughter who I'd love to spend more time with. I owe my publisher 2 books. I would love to go fly my airplane and walk around with my dogs and be with Renee and play with my grandchild. But I can't stop doing this until the job is done. And it's one of the things that I'm stubborn as shit, but it is work that, you know, I don't care if Democrats appreciate it or not. I give them a lot of tough love. Tough love is still love. But I do care that my granddaughter appreciates it someday.
Look, it's so sort of elegiac. I feel like we have to leave now, but I got a few more things to ask and one more ad to play. So you're taking, I think this story point is really important. I think as a Democrat, this point of avoiding the discursive 35-page stuff is very important. I think in general, the Fox News that you kind of glanced over, but that makes it so hard to penetrate at least the 28%.
Yeah.
But here's one where you really swung for the fences. I like to play it.
Sure.
And get your sense. It's a pretty chilling view. This is Aftermath.
I apologize.
I apologize.
It's my voiceover.
Yeah.
Because I pulled my car over and read it into a microphone for my producer, because our voiceover guy was like, he got sick, and I was like, to quote the great Bill O'Reilly, we'll do it live.
So cue up, please.
November 5th,
Aftermath.
2024. Donald Trump defeats a divided and dispirited Democratic campaign. On January 20th, 2025, Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. Unfortunately, he keeps his promises. Trump seizes control of a divided government, signing hundreds of executive orders implementing Project 2025. Trump replaces over 50,000 civil servants with hardline MAGA loyalists. The federal oath of office now requires declaring loyalty to the president, not the Constitution. Protected by the Supreme Court's grant of total immunity for official acts, Donald Trump orders the Department of Justice to arrest members of the January 6th Commission, current and former DOJ employees, and political opponents for treason, election interference, and conspiracy. He declares it to be an official act. Trump ends birthright citizenship by executive order and turns millions of American-born citizens into illegal aliens overnight. Mass deportations begin. Hundreds of thousands, including legal U.S. residents and American citizens, are imprisoned in newly built camps. Protests erupt. Trump addresses the nation from the Oval Office, invoking the Insurrection Act and declaring the protesters a danger to American sovereignty. He orders the National Guard to use deadly force to suppress the protests. In the wake of the bloody violence, Trump declares nationwide martial law, awarding himself new powers under the freshly signed American Sovereignty Protection Order, which defines protest of immigration policies as non-protected speech and a threat to national security. Governors in New York, California, Illinois, and elsewhere declare their opposition, promising to refuse compliance in their states. Trump orders their arrests. Trump pardons every January 6 attacker, including those who assaulted the police, and in a White House ceremony issues a new presidential medal honoring them. Many are given jobs in his administration. The Department of Education is renamed the Department of American Values and mandates a nationwide Christian nationalist curriculum for all schools receiving federal aid. Trump, joined by Speaker Mike Johnson and evangelical leaders, announces that the Department of Health and Human Services has reclassified mifepristone, making it illegal to distribute or prescribe, as well as new HHS regulations that make IVF treatments impossible to legally administer. Trump reverses one campaign promise by declaring a national abortion ban by executive order. Challenges to his authority are rejected by the Supreme Court, which has seen new appointments from Trump after it was expanded to 12 justices. He signs an executive order removing abortion records from HIPAA privacy regulations and announces a new federal data sharing program so states can monitor women's periods. Thousands are detained while crossing state lines under suspicion of seeking an abortion. Trump's acting Secretary of Defense, a disgraced ex-general, fires over 400 generals and admirals, leaving the military leaderless. Other Trump appointees purge the ranks of the CIA, FBI, and Department of Justice. By executive order, Trump withdraws the United States from NATO and ends Pentagon cooperation with Ukraine. Russian tanks enter Kyiv. Vladimir Zelensky is killed. It is announced that Trump will run for a third term, claiming he was unfairly cheated in the 2020 election. His Supreme Court ultimately agrees with this interpretation, paving the way for Trump's 2028 re-election. If you hear all this and believe it isn't possible, then ask yourself, what did you believe was impossible just 8 years ago? This isn't a fantasy. It's Trump's plan, and he's counting on you to believe it couldn't happen.
That ad was made in October of 2024. We have a running total in our, one of my research guys has a running total of the promises in that speculative ad that have come true. It's 38% right now. And I think there's a lot of that falls into this category with Trump. And it's always important to remember this. He will do what he can get away with. And he's gotten away with a lot of stuff in his life. He will go until you stop him. And everybody in this room and everybody in the country who believes in this country, who believes in this republic, has to dedicate themselves to stopping him. And by the way, I just want to make one quick aside. The team I have, this stuff just doesn't pop out of my brain and suddenly appear on a screen. I have an amazing team of researchers and producers, and they are the best in the business. They're the best in the country at doing this. We turn down a lot of ad work from companies who are like, please come work for us now. We're, you know, maybe someday, but right now we got to stay on mission. And I just want to, you've talked to Whitney, who's my lead production and who handles all of my, she handles the Rick sphere of all the chaos around me. But they're just an amazing team of folks. I'm thrilled, and the rest of the Lincoln Project. I mean, we're a bunch of former Republicans who just won't do this. We just will not do it. So
yeah, seriously, your kind of dedication. Yeah, it's fair. I just want to say about this one, I found it riveting, and in part because this is the message, but you framed it in emotional terms, that I'm like obsessed with and always feel like I'm trying to bring over, but in terms that I think are very, they come across as legalistic, and to really bring home that dystopia, I think, is quite interesting.
I think the fact that we've got the DOJ headed by Pam Bondi, who I've known for 25 years, she is one thing only, and that is obedient. She's also cheap. Trump bribed her with $25,000 to drop the Trump University case in Florida. If I'd been advising her, and I know who was advising her at the time, I would have said, like, add more zeros. $25,000 to save him like $50 million? Come on.
Talking Feds is supported by the Brennan Center for Justice. In this new political era, the Brennan Center will do what they do best: defend the Constitution and the rule of law. They're prepared to fight against presidential overreach and will continue advocating for reforms to resist weaponized government, stop billionaires from corrupting our elections, and ensure every eligible American has the freedom to vote. Stay informed by visiting BrennanCenter.org.
All right, let's change it up a little. You ready? What do you think about a lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
So here you go. Okay, I'm going to turn it over. That's how much time. And it isn't long, my pretty. You ready?
Go.
All right. Your political hero.
My political hero is Theodore Roosevelt.
The Democratic political consultant you most respected.
Joe Trippi.
Say it again?
Joe Trippi.
Okay. Favorite, like, brain dead movie?
Favorite brain dead movie? Grosse Pointe Blank.
Yes. Next, you got a Michigan thing going. All right, next red state that might go blue.
The next red state that might go blue, I'm going to shock you, it's Texas. Republicans have effed it up so bad.
You don't need to comment.
Yeah.
Okay. Music most likely on your car radio.
EDM.
Best things about your two English pointers. Thank you, Whitney.
Jilly, my old German short hair, actually.
Okay.
Jilly is very ancient, but still loves to go out and hunt birds, and still thinks she's hunting birds in my backyard, even when she's not hunting birds. Jane is the sweetest dog ever in the world, although she spins around constantly. We call her Spinderella.
All right. If you could get all money out of politics and have it only be public, would you?
Yes.
What's your favorite cuisine?
I cook everything, Harry. I cook everything. So I'm very
Nothing fair. Okay.
Small C Catholic.
Best campaign of your lifetime, whether or not you worked on it.
Best campaign of my lifetime, I did work on it, was 1988, George Herbert Walker Bush. I was a brand new guy in politics. I learned more than I ever learned in any other campaign. It was hard. I got the shit kicked out of me all the time. By
Lee Atwater. That's the
Lee
Willie
Atwater.
Horton campain and the little helmet in the tent campaign.
Yep. But it was a campaign where the guy who was my direct boss, Lanny Griffith, was Lee's deputy. Lanny ran the South, and he recently passed. But a few months ago, we had a conversation, and he said, "Remember when we used to fire people in the White House when they were rude?" I'm like, I do remember that.
And of course, the best Southern California city near the Mexican border.
Oh, yeah, duh.
Oh, there you go. All right. So much of what you've done is sort of dark and bringing it home. And now, after 2020, and I was really with you during those months, you've just doing it because you have to and getting back to it and Godspeed. But what is your overall level of hope now, and what's it based on? Plenty of reasons to be cynical, but can you give us some reasons to be hopeful?
Yeah. America is, the old Churchill trope about we'll do the right thing after we do all the wrong things. But America has taken on, in its 250-year history, 5 or 6 what I call great works. We were flawed in the beginning of the country with the inclusion of slavery in the Constitution, because we had to bring a country that was very different together. Between that moment and the Civil War, there was a great work in this country, and that great work was the end of chattel slavery. women were not enfranchised. The great work of giving women the franchise was a great work of this country. It took decades. We defeated fascism in Europe. We grew as a nation into the power that we were in the world and did some bad, but a lot of good. That was a great work. The Pax Americana in the post-war era was a great work. We make hundreds of mistakes, but we still try to turn that arc of history back. The civil rights movement was race in this country is the single through line of the great work. The civil rights movement in the 60s was that great work. We defeated Soviet communism, which was one of the greatest evils of mankind. It was persistent, it was oppressive. That was a great work. We have expanded our reach and our grasp in technology and science in ways that were unimaginable 25 years ago. That was a great work. The great work of our future is to restore the republic. The great work of our future is to unwind and undo this crude nationalism of Trumpism, to unwind and undo the brutality and the cruelty and the conspiracy of a culture that is taken over what was the shell of a political party. I mean, there is no Republican Party. It's gone. They kept the logo, they kept the building, but they replaced it with this nationalism. And I truly believe that the substitutes for a democratically elected representative government in a functioning republic are completely unacceptable. There's a whole cult up in Silicon Valley that thinks we should be in an era, a post-democratic era, and have monarchs and kings. Peter Thiel and these guys and Curtis Yarvin, they believe that democracy is a failed system. The last and greatest, effort of the great work has to be to save democracy and save this republic. If we don't do that, our future is unbelievably bleak. We lose the beautiful propositional nature of America. And, when my German relatives came to this country in 1836, they were the scum of the earth, okay? They were the scum of the earth. Following them a few decades later, the Irish were the scum of the earth. And the Italians came after them, scum of the earth. The Jews, scum of the earth. The Vietnamese, scum of the earth. On and on, Hispanics, scum of the earth. And they all became Americans because this country, at its best and finest, is not blood and soil. It is a propositional idea that you become an American by becoming an American. You don't become an American because you have a certain DNA or a certain religious practice. You become an American because you come to this country and you buy into our culture, our system, our lives, our practices, this beautiful, flawed, hot mess of a country. If we don't protect that, if that's not the great work, nothing matters. But this country has always done the hard shit in the end. We will fight against it. We will do the worst possible things over and over again. But in the end, enough good people stand. Enough good people fight. That's what we got to fight for.
Please join me in thanking Rich Wilson. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.